Hi, this is Noma Dimitri from the Alpine Garden, and it is the spring of the coronavirus where all of us have to stay at home and do what we can to amuse ourselves profitably, hopefully, during this difficult period. So, I live in the boonies in the middle of nowhere, and I have a garden, and so I'm not in the process of watching endless Netflix or redecorating the house. What I'm in the process of doing, as many gardeners are doing right now, is taking care of spring um, and honoring spring in the way she's supposed to be honored by planting new things. So, what I've decided that my way of marking this difficult time for all of us, the planet, humanity, um, the Corona Spring, the way I'm going to commemorate it is I'm going to make a new bed of flowers, of course, I mean, because bed is the term that gardeners use to describe what the French call a parterre, which is a part of the garden that's separate from the rest, and it has a theme, and it grows a certain kind of thing. So you can think of a bed in your garden as a particular vase, if you want, like a vase in which a particular kind of flower sequence is demonstrated. So I'm gonna make a new bed for this spring, for the Corona Spring, with a particular theme to commemorate this. And it's going to come back every year because I live in a four-season environment, so that means everything dies during the winter, and it comes back in the spring and the summer. And so every summer, this particular bed will wake up, will make the flowers that I will choose this particular year, and remind me of this particular spring of coronavirus and the moments that we experienced this spring of 2020. So, first of all, I'm going to show you a little bit of the garden and the existing beds, and so you'll get an idea of the bed that I'm planning to do. So here we are. This is the garden right behind me. And I told you that I live in the middle of nowhere. You can see there's still snow in the mountains and up on the high peaks. But spring has come early this year. But as you can see, the mountains are still fairly bare. They're not green. So it's spring has arrived all the way to the level of the garden, but not necessarily up in the high mountains, which are still rocky and bare. But be sure in 2 weeks or so they'll be all green as well. So this is the main garden, and this is where I'm doing the new bed right here. You can see the earth disturbed and some tools um, and shovels and buckets and everything else. So this is where I'm going to do the garden. The new bed, the Corona bed. Now, let me explain to you a little bit about what this bed will look like. So this is a little bed that I already have. Here you go. It's a very, very basic, small little bed of flowers, and the flowers are primarily daffodils. But if you go more closely, as we go more closely to see this, you see there's another kind of little flower that the blue ones that are also growing here, and in a couple of weeks there are little bells that are coming through, and you can see one right here. And on the bottom of the bed, so that it's not covered either with grass, which may choke the bed, or with boring soil. I have another plant that has red leaves that's very pretty. That's here. You're gonna take a look at it right now. So when the daffodils, which is a bulb, when they eventually die out, instead of having just dead, dried things, because all of this, the leaves and everything else, are just going to slowly dry out. So instead of having this to be a dead space, this red one that you saw right here, the red leaf is actually going to blossom. They're almost timed perfectly. The moment these guys die out, the red leaves below start blooming and they make life again. And so the bed always looks nice because it's got a variety of things that are meant to grow at a particular time, one after the other, in a sequence, so it's always pretty. And these are the principles behind the so-called four-season garden, in which you plant things so that they look good at every season. There's always something going on in a place, instead of having it look nice right now and then like a piece of shit a month from now. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a few things about bulbs. So this is a bulb. It's actually an onion, but onion is a bulb. Okay, a bulb is a plant. It is the whole plant in some ways at a particular stage of its life. A seed is also a plant. It's a potential plant at a particular stage of its life as well. But there are very, very big differences. And I'm going to tell you just a couple of things about bulbs so that you know. Number one, when we see a bulb, let's look at this onion, okay? We see the bottom here, which usually has a little mustache, okay? And we see the top, which is this little tuft, okay? So this is just like an onion that you can buy in the supermarket, okay? What happens if you put this underground and you start watering it? The first thing that's going to happen is this bottom little part here, the mustaches are going to start growing and they're going to make roots. And these roots are going to start sucking water into this bulb, which you already know from having cut plenty of onions in your life. It's actually fairly wet and moist, unlike a seed which is completely dried out. So these little roots are going to come up, they're going to start absorbing water. Sooner or later, as you have also seen sometimes with the onions in your refrigerator, a little green thing is going to start popping out of here, which is the first leaf, that is going to become bigger and bigger, and it's going to look just like the leaves in the daffodils I showed you before. Okay, so that's how a bulb works. Now, a bulb in nature, this is a nice tasty thing for a lot of creatures, right? It's also full of water, unlike a seed which is completely dried out. This is also full of water and nutrients. It's ready to be eaten. In fact, you eat it. You eat bulbs, you eat onions, you eat garlic, you eat lots of different things like that. Bulbs. So because it is so edible and so delicious and so nice, the way to survive in nature and not be eaten and come back year after year after year, as it does, is for it to be buried safely underground, away from reach. This is why a bulb is never really planted in the surface. It's planted deep inside the ground. Okay, this is one reason. Another reason, remember that we said that this is wet and full of juice and everything else. Another important reason for this to be deep inside is that it doesn't freeze. This is full of water, as a moist onion, as you know, moist onion to be. So if this is just 2 centimeters below ground, it can grow if you're in Florida, but if you are where I am, where the ground freezes during the winter, this is just gonna die, okay? Because it's a thing full of water that's just gonna freeze and it's gonna explode and it's gonna die. So it has to be below ground in order to make it. That means that this little leaf that will emerge will have to pierce through the soil through all the layers of the soil that I have, until it arrives to the sunlight, the surface of the soil. Now, how deep do you put it? The rule of thumb that gardeners use is 5 times the length of the bulb. So if this is the bulb, then 5 times this length is where I'm supposed to put it. So this is the part of the bulb that is a pain in the ass. So here we are in our new Corona bed, and as you can see, it's a disaster zone, okay? I'm gonna get up and have you see it from far away. So this is gonna be the Corona bed. Believe it or not, in a couple of months, this total mess, it goes all the way to here, okay? From one tree, this small tree here, to the other, okay, over here. So this whole thing, believe it or not, that looks like absolute hell right now, like it was bombed out, in 3 months will be full of delicious, red, orange, and yellow flowers growing all over here, because the bulbs that I'm gonna put in are gonna flower, and they are summer flowering bulbs. Summer flowering bulbs, unlike the daffodils that you saw over there, which are spring flowering bulbs. But let's not get too bogged down in the details. Okay, so what do you do? How do you do this? You take your bulbs and you have to make sure that you remember which way is top and which way is bottom, and you go down. This is going to be tricky with the camera. You go down into the hole and you, let me get rid of these sticks, and you pause it. You pause it right here, and then it's ready. It's deep enough. It's 5 times. It's in this shitty earth. It's 5 times the length of the bulb. It's deep enough, and all you need to do now is cover the damn thing. So you just bring soil up and you cover this whole thing all the way to the top. Okay, so you don't need to do absolutely anything else. You cover all these holes. You put all your bulbs inside. You cover all these holes up with soil, and then you water. And then you wait. So this damn little thing, it's going to, why do I call it damn little thing? It's a wonderful little thing. So this wonderful little tiny thing is going to do exactly what your refrigerator onion is going to do. It's going to make the little roots that I told you in the bottom. It's going to make the little leaf, and it's going to go through these 30 centimeters like this, like a straight tube all the way up. It's going to run into stones in the middle, but it's going to snake itself through whatever obstacle it runs into, and then it's going to pierce through, and it's going to blossom into, it's going to make the first leaf, and eventually will make the beautiful flowers that I promised you. And we'll make another video in 3 months from now to show you what this looks like, so you can understand that I am telling you the truth, and this is not fake. So that's the story. Should I tell you more about spring flowering bulbs or summer flowering bulbs? Yeah, it's important, because if you're going to do the same thing as I did, which means to order some bulbs online, have them delivered, and play with them, you should know what to order. Spring is the time when you plant summer flowering bulbs, okay, and they're special. The person that's going to sell you the bulbs is going to know which ones are, or you can Google them, of course, which bulbs are summer flowering and which are spring flowering. So you need to buy summer flowering bulbs. You put them now in the spring in the soil, and then they will come out in the middle of the summer, as opposed to spring flowering bulbs, which you put in the soil in the autumn, in September. Okay, so these are the things to remember. You have to remember the 5 times the distance. You have to be able to dig a nice hole if you have to go deep. And I did this with this fantastic, the favorite gardening tool that I have. This is how you dig. And then you put them in, and then the lovely thing is, these things will come back year after year after year. They will die, they will come up, they will make the little leaves, they will make a beautiful flower like tulips. The flower will last a couple of weeks, then it will die out, then the leaves will die out, and then it will look like nothing whatsoever. You can just cut it all, it's naked, zero. But then the summer afterwards, it'll come back again and again and again and again. And an extra bonus, and the final thing, and then I shut up, it will multiply. So the 20 bulbs I will put right now, in 3 years will be 40, in 6 years will be 80. So you get more and more and more and more and more, so you can actually cut the extra ones and give them as presents to your friends. Or dig out the bulbs themselves and give them as presents to yourself, which is actually much nicer. Take care. Noma Dimitri from the Alpine Garden, planting my Corona bulbs.